and for our group in case we're doing stuff and we want to put it on, So
Okay,
yeah,
that's great.
it'd be
Now,
cool.
yeah, I just realized that I needed to start the broadcast, so we're on live now. So, and this, I'll just make an introduction. Like, this is a real informal thing. We're on our first hangout on Sunday, and it's myself, Shelton Henderson. We have Jen Taylor, and also my wife Michelle is on, and we're talking about the event. Um, can you pronounce her first name again? The
Sakivu
speaker Sakivu and
Hutchinson.
Sakivu Hutchison, and we were just talking about the event that took place on Thursday, and Jen was telling us that there will be video and audio and everything that's being merged together now to have it as a reference or something for us to watch for the group. Um, and we also spoke about the humanist picnic yesterday out in which that was in Jersey yesterday, right, Jen?
Yes, Central Jersey. It's the New Jersey Humanist Network's annual picnic, and it was actually a lot of fun. And
Mm.
some of the members from the network actually came to Dr. Hutchinson's talk to
Oh, okay.
support, both support the organization and support me and Dr. Hutchinson. So it was a treat to see them there. They took them a couple hours to get there.
Wow.
But it's nice. People traveled. It was someone who traveled up from Delaware, people out of the city, and then some people from the area, and some members that I hadn't seen in a while. So it was really good turnout. She signed books. Yeah, it was great. Great conversation. They're actually having a conference in Los Angeles called Moving Social Justice,
Right.
and so they're going to have panel discussions and some entertainment, and it's going to be interesting. I'm planning on flying out for it
That's
in
great.
October 11th and 12th in
Okay.
Los Angeles. So I posted like the little synopsis of who's going to be in the conference and all that within the group. So
Okay.
I'll be sure to post it again.
Okay. Now
Uh,
you said people were asking kind of crazy questions. So what kind of
yeah,
questions?
it's strange. It's strange because I go to these, I've I go to a lot of meetups. I go to
Mhm.
meetups all the way from, I mean, Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Western PA. I've been all kinds of places, and people were asking her really strange questions. Like, one person in particular asked about the black community, basically making a statement, trying to form it into a question, talking about how the black community is outraged by uh, illegals coming into this country and taking our jobs. And Dr. Hutchinson mentioned that that just, I mean, illegals is racist.
Right.
How can people be illegal?
Right.
So this person continued on with that same
Hmm.
conversation. It was just, it's so it. There's definitely a disconnect,
Right.
between people of color and the larger movement,
Hmm.
and that was definitely evidenced by some of the questions that we had. Like, one person, actually said, "Oh, we've been trying to get black people of color. We've been working hard to get them in our groups," and I'm just like, I'm just like, here we
Uh,
go. And I'm like, well, and then of course the typical question, the typical statement comes up. Some of my friends are black, you
Oh
know,
my, they're
like
still there, going there, on there. Wow.
still going there. And I'm like, wow, wow,
Mm,
okay. So this individual came up to me after and said, I know that Dr. Hutchinson's group, Black Skeptics LA, works with religious organizations as well, for on social justice concerns. And I don't believe the charter of this group would allow us to do such a thing.
right.
So I said, well, and I'm not okay with that idea. And I said, well, okay, well, let me give you an example. Black Atheists of Philadelphia, we, on Martin Luther King Day of Service, we went to help a school. We went to go cleaning and things like that, and of a public school. And two other groups showed up. They happen to be church groups.
Mm,
So when people who work for the school got up and said, "Who's representing today?" and I got up and said, "Black Atheists of Philadelphia," and two other churches uh, said their names, and we worked together side by side, hand in hand, to um, just work on something that's based on a service for the kids, for the children.
right.
So it didn't come up with us fighting or having arguments or religious debates, and that wasn't really the purpose of us being there. We were there for the kids. So it worked out. And she was like, "Oh, okay." So I'm like, "All right, well, that's called coalition building. That's called building community." And you might not share their worldview, but for projects like that, it happened to work out great. I mean, I can't speak for many other groups, but it worked at that particular time, and we were invited back. So it was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I
Good
think
stuff.
that's great. I think that's great. And welcome my daughter and son-in-law to the Hangout.
Hey.
Hey.
But what I wanted to say on that, just to follow up real quick on that, that I find that people, my experience has been that almost, if you don't bring up the topic of, um, specifically if you're in an arena where you're discussing the topic of belief or non-belief, that's the subject of conversation. But if you have a larger mission, it's really, like you're there to help the children. It's not like there to scout out people to try to get some debates going or anything like that. So, I think there's a disconnect where people think that, every arena is okay. We're gonna, if there's those atheists there, they're gonna threaten us with, come and talk to us and try to get a debate going, and you know, that's why I think in my particular situation, I don't have a problem with my family members that are super religious because we just don't even talk about it. It's not the topic of discussion all the time. Your mission was to get that going. So I think that's people tend to forget that. And like you said, the bigger picture is coalition building, not um, you got a larger goal in mind to do. So um, that.
Right. And just in the another activity that I worked on was national H. So I knew about Black Skeptics Group doing some things in D.C., Chicago, and L.A.
Mhm.
And I said, well, I'd like to come on and do something for Philly.
Right.
Let's get out and do something for the community. And it was a great experience. I know one of the organizers for it. He actually needed a ride to get some of the materials he needed down to Temple University. We were at the Leah Core Center,
Mhm.
and I said, sure. So he got in the car and he was like, thank God, and that you were able to help. And I said, well, I don't I don't subscribe to that belief.
Right.
And I'm doing this because I care about the greater good. I care about the community. I'm an
Right.
atheist. I'm an
Hmm.
organizer of an atheist group,
Right.
and we care about the community just as you do,
Yeah.
and that's really my focus. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not there. I wasn't there to recruit anyone.
Right. Yeah, and I think at
Although
times,
someone did try to recruit me.
oh,
Someone tried to give me some Bible tracts down there.
yeah, I think at times people
It
tend to
was
forget
funny.
also. Yeah, they also tend to forget that a lot of people that are atheists and humanists actually come from the religious backgrounds. They tend to forget. I think they think there's a atheist factory somewhere where you just come out and you're atheist, and they don't understand that you've already been. It's possible that you've already been where they are at right now. So
Right.
yeah. So yeah, once again, I want to kind of move over to my daughter and son-in-law, and oh, I'm sorry, my wife was here first. If she had anything that she wanted to say, I don't know if she ran out to the bathroom. Are you there, babe?
Mhm.
Yeah, she's doing a few things there. She may run to the bathroom, but
Thank
welcome Sierra and Stephen Oliphant, my daughter and son-in-law.
you.
Can you guys hear me? You have any?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I can.
So they're down in the very liberal, very
Very
atheist
blue.
bastion, the atheist bastion of
The
Columbia, South
headquarters of
Carolina.
atheism. Headquarters of the atheist factory.
Yeah, exactly. They're swimming in a pool of free thinkers down in down in the progressive city of Columbia, South Carolina.
We know this.
So, how you guys doing today?
We're doing really well.
Uh-huh.
Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just chilling and we figured that this would supplement our time that we would have had at church. So
Right. Yeah. So
it
is
feels
that
great to have free Sundays, I'll tell you.
you're right? Yeah. No, it's so good to have somebody mess up your free Sunday by talking about let's go online and talk about stuff with atheist human stuff. Messed up that free day off.
Heathenism.
Yeah. So yeah, that's great. So we had talked before about some things about actually being in a place where it's super religious, and if you guys can kind of tell us how it is down or if you want to just give a brief introduction and how you came to the way that you think now, and then kind of tell us how it is with your new way of thinking in the environment that you're in. So take it away.
JR, start. I'm gonna get my charger so JR can start. Hold on.
Okay.
Oh, one second.
Can you?
Um,
Go ahead.
hey, how you doing?
Yeah, we're doing great, man.
Yeah. I guess I was mine. It's well, you were. We were just passing by the Red Lobster that we were
Uh,
all at one time
okay.
before we got married, and I
Uh,
remember a conversation when I was like trying to convince you that
uh,
of the truth of the Bible and stuff like that. And then I just remember you like saying that, if you keep studying a little bit more, man, you're not going to be, you're too much of a black sheep. Uh,
right.
because like with the church that I was at, they didn't really. I mean, at the time it was admirable, but um, they gave me a minister's license at the age of 15. And I don't know why they did that. It's just like, oh my God, yeah, this guy's
I
like,
think they
you know,
have a little
I
problem.
was like pretty mature 15-year-old, but at the same time I was 15. It was like, I think normally when people talk about like why they became atheists or something like that, they like to bring up like the problem of evil or the problem of sin or like some of those particular issues like if suffering and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
for me, it was the fact that I studied too much because I thought that by studying I was becoming closer to God. And so I've always been a very observant person. So even from 15 all the way until I was like 18 or so, there was just certain things that I would hear in church that was disagreeing with what I was studying personally at home. And then I started going through this like rapid change around like the age of 20, where at one point I believed in hell, but then now I no longer believed it because I no longer believed it was a biblical concept. Then I started noticing that like the Bible is filled with polytheism. It's not monotheistic at all. And then I started questioning the virgin birth. I started questioning the miracles. I started questioning like every little last part to the point where I was just like, you know what, I'm not Christian anymore, you know?
Right.
So it's like, I think but the thing that set me over the top was, and it was apathetic Christians, because one thing I noticed was that I would tell people would say, study to show yourself approved, and they will always say that you need to read the word, you need to be concerned about the word and stuff like that. But then when I started talking to other people wouldn't want to listen. So I started talking to other Christians, and they were disinterested in the very Bible that I was trying to get them interested about. And I was like, well, if everybody else finds this boring, like what's actually wrong with it? And so that like kind of set me to the point where I'm like, well, why am I so concerned with this? Everybody else is so disinterested. It's like they like to talk. I always said that Christians or Muslims or even other believers, they're not necessarily believing in God. They believe in the belief of believing in God, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It's believing in God makes them feel good. They don't really care about what that entails.
Right.
And so, like, if it entails my best friends going to hell, they don't really care. As long as they can have the belief in God. Even if God is illogical, they don't care as long as they can believe in God. It's like the belief of believing is totally fine by them. The actual, what it means to believe in God really doesn't matter. And so that's eventually how I just got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I mean, I floated around pantheism, believing that God was all and all is God for a little bit. Then I floated towards deism, the hands-off kind of God.
Right.
And eventually I just said, well, if I'm starting to float back, because I'm just trying to keep my God concept. So I was like, you know what, it's just better to start off with a null hypothesis first and just believe that no God exists if given the evidence.
Yeah. Now, how is it for you being in South Carolina, being in an environment, and basically what I know about you, being brought up in a religious household, making that shift from being in that household and still being in the same environment, but with a new mindset? Now, how has that experience been for you?
It's walking on eggshells, really.
Really?
Just because you're much more cognizant of, you're much more aware of how religious your family actually is, and even your friends. I could go out drinking with my friends.
I think we got a little gap in the data stream. Let me see if I can do anything about that.
You know what, Shelton?
Yeah.
What? That was Steven talking. I'm sorry, I had to go get dressed. That was Steven talking.
That was Steven, but then Sierra came in, but they got their bandwidth thing there. But I have my bandwidth to the limit, so.
Okay. But what he was saying about his friends and family and other believers liking the belief in God, not necessarily everything that comes with it. And that's how I felt. That's how I feel. That's why I'm like, like I always say, like, I'm not a believer nor a non-believer. It's like I'm kind of like a non-carer. I don't even know what that's called, but
a patheist.
A what? You said an atheist?
A patheist. No, a patheist. A patheist, a person that's apathetic about theism.
Oh, okay, that's me then. Yeah, but that's like, it's for that reason. It's like, you can't, you have those people, everybody, I feel like, is hedging their bets. I tell Sheldon that all the time. It's like, I feel like everybody's hedging their bets. It's like you got one foot on either side of the gate trying to figure out which grass is greener to jump down on, you know, and it just, I don't know, it has always bothered me also, just like how it bothers Stephen. It's like, so now, you know, I have to kind of agree with him on that null hypothesis. You know, it's just, you got to go to that null state.
Yeah. Are you back there, Sierra?
With our connection.
Yeah, we lost the connection there. Yeah. So I'm sorry. So you were saying like when you go out with your friends to, you know, to go out drink, you know, have a drink with your friends. So can you pick up back up with that or?
Right, yeah, you know, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be limited to that, but it can just be, you know, anything that I would, you know, for example, I'll start off with my experience too, and how I transitioned, um, is being a Christian. You know, when I was younger, it was like I would go with my mom, and it was like, oh, we'll go to church. Okay, it was just a thing to do. Um, but she wasn't really serious about it, you know. But it was like, it was still like you knew that God was there, but it was like I'm not really worried about it. I mean, obviously I'm like 10, 11 years old too, so my mind is not really focused on that. And then when we moved to South Carolina, that's when we found a church home, and that's when I really, you know, in high school I really started getting serious about it. And so I was like, you know, I teach Zumba now, but funny enough, my mom would do Zumba, and I was like, when I was so serious about the Lord, I was like, I'm not gonna do that. That's secular music. That's not of God. Like, and I'm sitting here like 15, 16 years old, like I'm not gonna do that, you know. And then so I'm like, I'm really serious about this, you know, and I'm going on. My dad always makes fun of me because I went on a 6-week.
Oh my God.
Mission trip. Thought I was in a cult. I went on a mission trip for 6 weeks in the summer of 2010 for it was campus organization, campus ministry, and you know I was just on fire. I'm like everything is God, you know. So even now, you know, as an unbeliever, I'm looking at my friends. I'm like, you guys are proclaiming to serve and love God, and I'm like, but when I was in your position, I wouldn't be caught dead in a place like this. You know, I wouldn't even go to a party. I wouldn't do any of this. You know what I mean? So, but the funny enough is like we'll do all that together, and these are the same people that be like, oh, you know, you don't believe in God? What? And they're looking at you strange, cross-eyed, and I'm like, well, really, you know, what's the difference between you and I? What is the true difference between you and I? The difference at the end of the day is that you say, well, I do this and I repent. There's no real distinct difference. It's that your proclamation is the only difference, and which is no difference at all. When you shave all that down, when you cut all that down, really, we're the same two people. You know what I mean? So, so to get back around to, you know, as far as being here in South Carolina, it's just you have church after church, you know, on every corner. You have, I mean, it's heavily infused. It's like you cannot get away from it. I mean, I can go to, you know, I can be involved in something that's, you know, for service, like how Jen was talking about earlier. I think it was with the HIV, against HIV/AIDS event that you were volunteering for. And I mean, I can go to something as simple as that, and it's like everybody bow your head and pray. I'm like, I'm coming here to serve. I'm coming here because I actually like. Funny enough, I actually still have morals,
Right.
and I actually have a heart for people. You know, I'm going into social work. I have a heart for people. That's my passion. But I don't need God to have that passion.
Well, I found one thing when I was in the South. When I was in school, during the summers, I sold books down there, door to door. And okay. Yeah, Babe, you gotta turn the phone off.
I'm leaving.
Michelle, turn the phone off. That didn't echo. Sorry about that. Yeah, I found that it was just like breathing. It's like you get up and like you go to breakfast. On Sunday you got up and you went to church. You know, like you have to eat, like you have to go to the bathroom, is like you have to go to church. So that environment, I know, and at the time I was actually a believer. At the time I was 18, 19 years old, and you know, the thing with me though, the distinction was that my religion was much different than what the environment I was in. I was a Hebrew Israelite, and everything was on Saturday. So, you know, I noticed a difference being that people were so entrenched on going to things on Sunday. So I can really kind of understand that, you know, how that is. It's just like, you know, it's scary, and just kind of picking back up on what Stephen said about how people are not. They're more interested in the surface belief, not anything deep at all. And you know, that's a problem when you start asking questions, and that's why, I mean, from my point of view, I kind of stress the confrontational with my non-belief, and I actually seek out debates and seek out conversation and confrontation. And when I say confrontation, it doesn't mean like, you know, shouting matches, but, you know, to get people to put their beliefs on the table. And most times you find that people are not prepared. And I'm curious to know with you, Jen, like being that you are more involved in the non-biblical, non-debate, and correct me if I'm wrong, type of arena, do you ever encounter anyone or do you encounter Christians or believers that kind of come up to you spouting biblical verses or challenge you on your non-belief? Are you of the people that you interact with, do you interact with people like that, or tell me a little bit?
Every now and again I do come in contact with believers and have discussions with people who believe, and they ask, well, if everything comes from God, where do you get your morals from? You know, questions like that. And they'll ask, did you ever believe before? And I would always tell them, yes, I did believe before, but I never believed in, I never really believed in the biblical God for long. I did think that there was something out there, but then I thought that this biblical God was not an entity to be worshipped, but an entity to be hunted and destroyed if it did exist, because
Right.
of how cruel it was. And you know, when I've had those conversations, and people have come to find out that I know more about their Bible than they do. I asked them, they asked me, how did you become a non-believer? And I said, well, one of the first steps to becoming a non-believer is to read the book.
Exactly.
I read the book cover to cover twice. And have you read it? Oh, well, I said, have you really read it? Or have you just read the scriptures that were cherry-picked by your pastor or religious leader? And then I go on to tell them, I said, well, if it's something that you want to base your whole morality on and your way of life, don't you think it's your responsibility to know this book, to read it, to understand, to try to gain understanding from it, if this is the book that dictates your moral code? And they just give me the blank look, and I say, well, in addition, this book has over close to 500 contradictions. You say you believe everything that's written in the Bible, then, you know, your Bible can't decide on certain things, you know. Which is it, you know, like it, you know. So I might throw some things out there, and I'm like, well, what do you believe? Which is it? And then I throw out the, you know, the scripture about being left to your own understanding, and then I'm like, well, you're doing it now. You create your own religion as each day goes on. You pick and choose whatever you feel like doing based on any given day. You know, you decide to uphold. Some people say, I don't want to deal with the Old Testament. Some people live in the New. Some people just don't like certain scriptures. And I say, well, according to the way you're living, you're going against what's written in your book.
Right.
So how are you going to tell me how to live if your God doesn't like the way I'm living? Let your God tell me itself. And the other thing is that you can't, I say, question everything.
Right.
Don't take my word for it. I can send you some links to where these contradictions are. I can point you in the direction of maybe some books or podcasts that might be helpful to you based on where they are or based on the questions that they might have. And so I pretty much go from there. And I'm also mindful of the fact that as a black woman in this country, people automatically assume that I am a Christian or a believer of some sort, and I have to understand that sometimes I'm the first atheist that they've ever met. So I'm very careful in how I communicate with them, because if I come off belligerent and hostile towards a person who has genuine questions, then that might form their opinion of all atheists, because the common thing that people say is, oh, does that mean you worship the devil? Does that mean you have no morality? Or some Steve Harvey mess talking about some where's your moral barometer crap,
Right.
So it's like it's like you kind of got to meet people where they are. I basically plant the seeds of reason and allow them to go from there, and just leave them with that food for thought. And if they want to ask me more, I leave them a means to contact me. And I've gotten several calls, and I've had several conversations with people online or via Facebook or in person, and it's been good. Like it's been good. Most of those conversations have been respectful, because for the most part I've been respectful towards them. And there's been a couple people that have been like that they were just not trying to hear it at all, and I'm saying, and I tell them, hey, well, you don't have to take my word for it. Read your book.
Right. Yeah.
But but keep in mind that why don't you read other books of the time? Why don't you try to find? I mean, if this Jesus Christ did these miracles, whoever the people were that were the recipient of these miracles, wouldn't them and their family want to write about it as well and pass that down to their generations? Where are these books at?
Right.
How many books did your Jesus Christ write?
Yeah.
You're basically, who wrote the books? Who wrote the Bible? How old is your Bible?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's like they find that I know a lot more about their book and its origin than they do. And like Stephen was saying, people have to cling to this belief. They want to believe because they want to believe, and there's no reasoning with some of the people. But I'm very fortunate to have people who love and care for me and accept me as I am, and I don't get into huge debates or arguments with my family or my friends. So I've always been the black goat of the family. I've always been the person who thought differently and asked a lot of questions, and atheism is just something to add to the list.
Okay. Yeah, I laugh because I'm actually reading a book called I think I had to turn around the other way, but it's actually called Who Wrote the Bible? But
JR said,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Have you read that, JR?
"What'd you think
So
of it?"
what?
No.
He said, "Did you write it?"
No, no. This actually, I want to talk about this in a quick minute. But JR, like
Okay.
how have you dealt with, Jim was saying about the question, which I hear a lot about, is like, well, where do you get your morals from? Have you encountered people that that bring that question up to you about, like, okay, so you're a free thinker, or atheist, humanist, whatever. So where do you get your morals from? Have you encountered that question at all?
All the time. Because
Mhm.
I mean, even this somewhat goes back to like even what Jim was saying before. I think a lot of it is a bigger issue than just religion. For the most part, I think that everybody operates from this fight or flight mentality where it's kind of like I'm just gonna go with the option that's gonna give me instant gratification, or is it gonna save me instantly? So it's like I think Michael Sherman gave like an example where he was saying if there's a rustle in the bushes and you're like you're an ape in the jungle and there's a rustle in the bushes, you can either think that the wind is blowing, or you can think
Mhm.
that it's a tiger and you can get out of there.
Right,
Now, if you don't want to get eaten, obviously the go-to answer is to just get out of there.
right,
But it very well could have been just the wind.
right,
And so I think that for the most part, when it comes down to people, we still have that fight or flight mentality that the option for us to think things through it's not our go-to option. You know what I mean? It's our first option is to it's better to go ahead and believe in God than to not believe in God, because
right,
obviously the bad part of not believing in God means that I could go to hell,
What if you're wrong?
or yeah, and even before there was the idea of hell, back then it was like, well, serving God was the difference between whether I get the crop next year or if I get famine next year.
right,
So it's like I don't want to have to think things through, because the instant option for me is to just go ahead and run, or to go ahead and pray.
right,
Why think prayer through when I can just go ahead and just do it? I don't have to
right,
think things through. But they do that not with religion, not just with religion. They do it with everything.
right,
Like if I know when I talk to it's a thing that happens with Democrats, Republicans, libertarians, no matter what. You try to get them to think out their worldview or their concepts, and they get so threatened that you bring up information that contradicts their belief about how the world works. It's because it's so much easier to gravitate towards like, hey, I've always grown up like this, or hey, this seems like a readily easy answer. I might as well just go ahead and give that.
right,
God is just one of a long list of things that people just want to accept the easy answer for just tough questions. So gay marriage, oh, it's just bad. They don't want to even think of why it could be bad. They don't
right,
even want to even. They don't even want. Likewise, even people who think it's good, they just want to think, oh, it's good, but they don't want to think of reasons of why it's
mhm,
good. Or there's some people say abortion, oh, that's just bad, or oh, that's just good. So we turn this world into a black and white world because it seems easy to turn things that are so complex and so hard to really that you have to really really think about, and then it turned into just all black and white things. That's like So I guess when it comes down delving into the morality issue, um, when people come up and say, "Where'd you get your morals from?" I say, "Well, first of all, I try to start off with this mindset of I don't want to do anything to somebody else that somebody would want to do, that somebody's going to do to me. Basically, like I do unto others." And then some people say, "Well, that's biblical." I'm like, "Well, no. Siddhartha Gautama or the Buddha said that. Then Hillel said that. Then there
mhm,
was like I think the Tao, the guy who wrote that the foundations of Taoism said that. So I mean, people have been saying this way before Jesus Christ was ever walking
right,
around. And so I was like, I just that's the more I take my approach. I know for a fact that I don't want to harm anybody, so I don't cause any harm back. I know that for the most part, like I try to keep peace with most people because I want people to keep peace with me. But when it comes down to breaking that peace or becoming violent, then I make sure that I'm like, okay, if somebody comes into my house and threatens my family, well, to me, like some people say, well, they're a pacifist. I'm like, I'm more of a person that's like, well, I might as well I'm going to defend my family at all costs. But that's because you came into my house.
Right.
It's like, so I think, I don't know if this is the right word, but it's more egalitarian. I'm just like, I'd rather do unto others what I want them to do to me.
Yeah.
And people and people can't, a lot of people try to say, well, then they start driving into the issues about abortion and homosexuality. And when they start doing that, then I'm like, well, again, you're trying to turn something that is so complex into something so simplistic. Like I actually tell Christians all the time, I say, I have no problem with us talking about the God issue. I think the God question is really a question that we all should ask. The problem is that if I start asking more questions to poke and prod around what your God actually is, then you become upset. Or I have no problem talking about the abortion issue or the gay or the homosexuality issue. I have no problem talking about I don't know, like private schools versus public school issues, things like that. But when people this is what happens when people say they have questions and they want to see where your worldview is, because they quote unquote are curious, they're not really that curious. They just want to. They're kind of looking for the fight. You bring up a valid point, and then what's the go-to answer? Well, I've always believed this, so I'm just going to come up with any reason just to close my ears and not have to listen to you.
Right.
I mean, and then on top of that, what you find out is that when you strip, like what Jim was saying, when you strip everything away, you start finding out that they invented their own religion. Thus, they invented their own morals, which is why, like, even when Sierra's like hanging out with her friends, like one of her friends in particular I can think of, he's homosexual. And I have no problem with that. But then he simultaneously he will go up and talk about how Jesus Christ is so awesome and the Lord. And I'm like, what? It's like like the Bible, like there's a disconnect where it's like he says he's a Christian, but then he clearly reads the Bible that is totally anti the way he was born.
Right,
and it doesn't
and not
make any
only
sense.
that, it's being in the South too. It's not even just the South, but just in general. I mean, you have pastors that will blatantly address homosexuality, blatantly, they'll just defame it. You know what I mean? They're tear it apart. It's like you're completely wrong. If you're homosexual, this is wrong. You need to repent. And I'm just like, what church do you go to? I mean, that's just what I'm like, what church do you go to? And that's the thing even in the religious world, is getting to the point where certain issues won't be addressed. Even with pastors, it's like, oh well, we want peace. I mean, to be honest, when I was a Christian, it was my perception at that point in time was that, oh, white churches will tiptoe around the issues. Black churches were more direct. But now it's getting to the point where, because things are becoming more acceptable, because people want to seek peace, now even Christians in and of themselves won't address issues, which is why people can, again, getting back to what Jen's saying, when people create their own religion, which is now why it's like, well, I believe this, and that. Oh, well, that's good. As long as we all still believe in Jesus, it's okay. I'm like, no. I mean, you sit in a church, you sit in one church establishment where you have a pastor, reverend, whoever he decides to call himself, or whatever he decides to call himself. You have him leading this group of people, but each and every single person has a different belief. I mean, people in JR's family, JR can bring up things with them, and they're like, well, that doesn't really matter. Oh, well, your pastor plagiarizes all his sermons. Oh, well, that doesn't really matter as long as he's inspired by God. It's okay. Oh, okay. So no matter, it's like you bring up these issues, and it's like, well, as for me and my house, we operate this way. Well, this person in your church, or this pastor, or this bishop, doesn't believe in watching these type of movies. Oh, well, in my house, it's about our personal relationship. So in my house, we don't do that. I don't allow my kids to do that. But your pastor does. You know what I'm saying? So it's these type of things where I'm like, all you guys have these different types of belief. When are you going to get the understanding, or when are you going to see that who is right?
But do
But
you think? Yeah.
they're not concerned with who is right. They're just concerned with as long as we all have a belief in God. I can do anything I want. I can go buck wild crazy. But as long as I believe in God and I'm sitting next to them at church on Sunday, or, for instance, the Hebrew Israelites and Seventh-day Adventists, on Saturday, whatever day of the week it is, we decide to serve God. As long as I'm there and my heart seems pure and genuine, then I'm okay. I'm gonna make it in.
Well, I think that yeah, people they're taking a safe route out by saying, they're hedging their bets, as Michelle loves to say, they're hedging their bets. They're saying, well, yeah, I know it sounds a little crazy to somebody, but do I do the fight or flight thing, and it's safer. And the ones who ran are the ones who survived today. The species that assumed that it was something to kill them, those are the ones that are surviving today. So the overall mindset is going to be the people. We are descendants of the people who ran away. But now you're confronting these type of things, and I kind of want to just bring on my behalf on some books that I have read recently that really dig deep. And these are the things. I have a debate coming up on the 2nd of October talking about the historical proof of the Israelites. Now, I've been researching this for a while, but just like in every other discipline, or every in music, in art, in theater, and various areas of scholarship, you have your experts. And this book I'm reading, I think it's called "Who Wrote the Bible," and this is by Richard Elliott Friedman. And basically, what in this book, and what I'm going to use in my debate, is the called the documentary hypothesis, which has been around for about 150 years. And what that hypothesis is that the Bible was written it comes from 3 separate sources. We're talking about specifically the first 5 books of the Old Testament. Because when I debate, I just stay in the Old Testament because, nobody's convinced me that that's valid. So it's like, until you can convince me that part, anything afterwards is meaningless. But this particular book actually goes through and highlights the different writers. So when you talk about contradictions in the Bible, Jen mentioned earlier, when you talk about those contradictions, you can actually have an explanation for the contradiction, because if you have 3 separate sources, which was from the people that refer to the God as El, the Elohist, which it has a connection to the Canaanite gods that these people actually originally were. You have the Yahwist, and then who refer to God as Yahweh, and then you have the priestly source, which basically just dealt with priestly activities and rules and laws and things like that. So the reason, and then you have on top of that, you have editors or redactors who kind of harmonize the stories together. Then you can understand why there's contradictions, because the Elohist source referred to God in a more personal sense. That you hear the story of when God was walking in the Garden of Eden, and he called out to Adam, and called him. So it's like, wait a minute, is God all powerful? If he's all powerful, why is he wanting to know where Adam is. Shouldn't he know?
Yeah.
But the Yahwists had a different way of thinking that, God was disconnected from them. And he used intermediaries to carry out his will. So in one verse, actually in one chapter, you'll get contradictions because the editor has fused the stories together, whereas you're dealing with two schools of thought on how the people interacted with their God.
Mm-hmm.
So, this book is very enlightening. It really breaks it down, and you understand the contradiction, but people are not nowhere near going this deep to find out what they're actually reading and who wrote it. And they're referring to this stuff as scripture, but when it's unknown writers of the same stories. You're hearing the same stories double and triplet from different viewpoints and people with different motivations. And the way that I'm dealing with now, I've been atheist for 20 plus years, and like I said, my main thing is confrontation and debate. And I was able to get this debate for the second. And I'm wondering how this guy, I kind of got a preview of where he was coming from, but mostly what I encounter is that in debates, I don't particularly, to me, like having a debate with a Christian is just, is Stephen and I last year or something, I tried to take the other side, and I just couldn't last 2 or 3 interactions with him because it sounds so silly to me that I couldn't even. It's just like indefensible. Really, how do you answer these tough questions? It's like you can't. But I'm finding that on the radio station that I'm dealing with, it's mostly Hebrew Israelites, maybe Seventh-day Adventists, but mainly the Hebrew Israelites. But I tell you, most of their stuff is like this crazy pseudoscience that and pseudo research that they come together to kind of make the thing fit when it really doesn't. And that's what I encounter. My encounters with, I'm pretty much a loner, so I don't, I'm not actively going out and seeking the Christians. But I think that that's something that we should be prepared for as free thinkers to, to encounter them, to talk to them, and, in the right arena, get with them. So when they ask you those questions, when they try to confront you with something, it's like, I'm gonna hit you back with this. Now now what's going on with this? And when they get to the thing, we had just briefly, we had a little going back and forth with some members of the church that I grew up in, and how the people, they don't even want to talk about certain things, but we got to have those uncomfortable conversations and have those responses back which they're not expecting. And then we need to have more in those on a micro level, and I think that's important in this interaction with believers. I really do.
No, I was saying that, like, even to what you're saying, like that was one of the I think the areas where I'm at right now, because if I try to take the whole route of saying I'm not going to confront anybody about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to try to just like let my life be reason enough where they'll be like, oh, hey, maybe there'll be something to this atheism thing. But what I started finding out is that people, it's kind of like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If you don't confront them, then here's what happens. They continue to put the statuses up. They continue to say things like, if wives or like ladies, if your man can't pray, then he's not worthy of you and stuff like that. And if they continue to say things, they'll continue to say things like, if you don't take your son or you take your daughters to church, you're a horrible parent. And you have to see this on a day-to-day basis. Then you walk around, I heard coworkers say, I just don't understand, like, how anybody cannot believe in God, and they think you're just such a horrible person. And the only reason why they can say things like that is because people like us, or people like us, oftentimes just shut up and say nothing. We just be like, because we don't want to rock the boat too much. But then if we do rock the boat, then what does everybody say? We rock the boat, then everybody says, oh, look at them, they're so angry, they hate God and stuff like that. So it's like, if I stay quiet, then I'm considered, they'll say whatever they want. If I actually broadcast that I'm an atheist, then they say, why do you hate God? So it's like the way I started thinking was like, well, it's better. It's better. They're going to have a bad opinion about me either way.
Mm-hmm.
So I might as well just go ahead and say something to people.
Yeah.
And when I had one guy recently just blocked me because I said, look, I actually emailed him too. I said, look, every time you put up a status up, if you put something about your Christian God in there, I'm going to confront you about it.
Mm-hmm.
I said, so you only have two options. Like you can go ahead. Obviously, you're going to block me. I'm not going to block you. But go ahead and block me
Mm-hmm.
because I said, especially when you're disinterested. And I mean, it's a tough path because that's a guy, that's a guy I used to be real good friends with. But like I said, it's you have to make that choice because they're going to have an opinion of you regardless. Either they're going to think you're wimpish or they think I don't know, you think you're wimpish or you're too outspoken because they're looking for a reason. Like it. I've even had people say things like, "Oh, you're quiet about your atheism, so that means you must be scared. You really
Mm-hmm.
don't. You really don't. I mean, you're not really an atheist. You're just
Mm-hmm.
scared." So then all of a sudden it's like no matter what choice you decide, how you confront somebody, somebody's always going to say something.
Right.
And I'm like, well, my personality, I'm a person who's like of confrontation. I still respect you
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, oftentimes religious people, like I was telling Sierra, like I have no problems with religious people. Religious people, when it comes to their religion, they're ignorant. They're very ignorant.
Right.
But other than that, on a day-to-day basis, when it comes down to buying their car, or when it comes down to buying a house, or when it comes down to fixing a car and stuff like that, they're very smart. They're very intellectual. It's just that in that one little arena, they check their brain at the door and be like, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna think things through. And I was like,
Right.
well, I might as well just go ahead and confront people about it. Now, like I said, the only people I really don't confront about my, lack of belief is my parents. But my parents and my family. But I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that's just obvious reasons. There's so much, to me, there's so much more for me to lose when it comes down to my family than I'm just not gonna quarrel with you guys. But they
Right.
see. But I make sure that they see it, and I make sure that they know, like, look, Mom, I don't believe this. Look, I don't
Right.
believe that. Don't invite me necessarily to this, or
Mm-hmm.
like if you want to go, but if you want to go there, then I'll talk with you. And that's
Right.
something where I think that they just kind of avoid. And it's like, well, we don't want to go there because then I'll go there and I'll stay there for a long
Right.
time. So,
Yeah.
but man, it's apathy. I think, like I said, it's just a larger issue. I think for the most somewhere at when you're a kid, when you're like a little baby, you're trying. And I see this with with Ashton. It's like when you're a kid, you test everything out. You test your parents out. You try to see what dad's gonna do as opposed to what mom does. You scream a certain way to see if you can get what you want. You're testing every little thing, and then at some point, I think as you get older, then you have to get trained to test stuff because I don't think we come in other words, it almost seems like we come into this world as critical thinkers, and so babies are critical thinkers. Then somehow when they become, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years old, they just lose that ability again, and it becomes whatever my parents tell me. And
What do
then,
you? Yeah.
and
What do
then as
you?
it gets
Yeah.
older, it gets worse because
Okay.
when you become more of an adult, then it's like, well, this is the way I grew up. But when you're a kid, you test a kid will act like God created it. Mom, you said God created everything, right? And then he's like, yes, yeah, God created everything. And he's like, well, the kid will ask who created God, and something may happen where the parent gets upset, slaps the kid in the
Mhm.
face, and then before you know it, then what does that do? That curtails that kid's learning because now this kid grows up saying, I'm not going to ask that question anymore. Because I think it's like kids almost have no filter, so they have no problem asking the questions. Then as we develop more of a filter of what's socially acceptable, then we lose that curiosity, or we don't necessarily lose the curiosity. We put it. I guess we hide our curiosity. That's why when you talk to religious people, that even though they quote unquote try to say they're all strong in their faith, I just know for a fact when I was in church. there is nobody who doubts like a Christian. Christians doubt all the time. The problem happens that when you get kicked out of the church or you get excommunicated, they pretend as if they never doubted at all. And I'm like, come on, man. We used to have conversations every single Sunday about how we sometimes doubted God. Christians doubt God. It's just that it gets really, really
There's
hard.
a reason why they have to keep going to church and
Exactly.
keep praying.
And
keep each other, you know, there's a reason why you have to hold me accountable for this, and I need an accountability partner, and there's a reason they need that certain level of support, is because they even say out of their own mouths that in and of themselves they're not strong enough, they're not knowledgeable enough, they don't have the ability to continue on in life or to be strong in life and to make good decisions, so on and so forth, without God, you know what I mean, or without, you know, their belief in God. And that, again, that support from church. You know, we wouldn't have all these church buildings out here, and we would, you know, religion wouldn't be so rampant if they did feel like they didn't need that, because without that, they're weak. You know, because the fact is, without that, they start thinking more. And you know what that we chalk it up to is, you know, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. Well, no, you want to you may want to rephrase that phrase, or revamp that phrase, because an idle mind leads to critical thinking, which in your terms is the devil's workshop, because if you the more you start thinking, the more you start realizing some things aren't right about what you believe.
Well, do you think that, and following that analogy all along, that atheists and freethinkers are basically still children, that you still have that childish mindset to continue to ask those questions, because we're asking sort of forbidden questions when we ask about questions like, you know, you say, okay, well, what's God's name, or who made God? You know, we're still rocking the boat. We're making people uncomfortable about things by asking the questions that we're asking. You know, I mean, what do you feel about that, Jen? Do you feel like, you know, what do you think?
I feel religion couldn't exist without the element of fear, and going to church and believing in a hell just reinforces that fear. And we have to also think about how we came by this religion. We didn't come over on slave ships, on slave ships with a Protestant section, a Baptist section, a Catholic section on the boat. This religion was beaten into us, and we were indoctrinated during slavery times, at the very least in this country. That's how I know my family came by this book and this religion. And it's hard to let go when you fear that you're going to burn for an eternity. You're going to suffer, and you feel like, you know, nothing's important. You're so focused on the afterlife that, you know, you lose sight of how rich and wonderful life can be if you would just open up your mind to just learning, and that curiosity, that childlike curiosity, and testing, you know. And it's just, I mean, it's no feeling like it to be around people who have critical thinking skills, and you can have open conversations with them, you know, without limitations. And I know that as the years go on, it becomes more and more of a challenge for me to be around people who don't. It's very challenging, because almost everything they say, you want to counter that, but you also have to respect that they have their own path as well. So sometimes I handle things more delicately than I would like to, but I know that if I don't handle it that way, it might be a complete shutdown and turn off for them to hear what I have to say later.
Yeah. My thing is, I'm also curious, and I want to ask Sierra this too. How do you feel like that your mindset has changed, basically because the Judeo-Christian mindset is one of negativity. It's just that you're not worthy, you'll never be worthy, and you have to pray and get confirmation, as you said, to make it through this rough, tough journey, which is life, which is hell on earth, which is life. But being that your mindset has changed about that, what has your new mindset done for you? Like, has it changed what is your outlook now versus your outlook when you were heavy into the Christian mindset?
Well, I was just talking to Sherry
Well,
about this yesterday, um, and it's I feel more free. You know, they say there's freedom in Jesus, there's freedom in Christ, but I always felt limited. I felt ashamed when I felt like I had a sinful thought, when I did something that wasn't right, when I said something that wasn't right. I felt bad when I didn't minister to, somebody that I was like, oh God, I know God's speaking to me and I should have spoke to this person. I just let him walk by, and that's not freedom. That's a false sense of freedom. I was enslaved in my mindset when I was a Christian. And now that I'm freed from that, I feel like if I think something, if I feel something, I'm like, this is natural. This is me in my natural state. This is how it's supposed to be. I shouldn't feel ashamed. So I feel so much more just liberated, and things that I can say. I feel like, you know, even in day-to-day conversation with people, I can be more honest with people, and because I don't feel restricted. I feel like, well, this is how it is. This is what I'm going to say, within reason, obviously, because I still have a degree of a filter. I'm not just going to say whatever I want to say, but I also feel like I can speak more openly, and I feel like I just look at the world entirely differently, and it's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
beautiful, even in my graduate classes, my graduate school classes. Um, there was at one point I was talking, we had online classes all this year, and I was talking to one girl. We could like private message while the teacher is instructing, and she had said something on the regular message board that everybody can see, and so I addressed her in private and asked her, what did you mean by this? And she was a feminist, and so I started talking to her, and she was, and I'm just giving her my opinion. I'm like, well, why not this? Why can't you be a human? What's the difference between this, and that? Why can't you just say that you're a humanist and that you're for all people? I'm like, because it's denigrating, even being a feminist, that's still denigrating to males, and we went on and on. And then if a few days later, maybe a week later, the next time we had class, she just said, you know what, I thought about more of what you said, and she was like, it was interesting hearing like how you felt about it, and she said you made me see it in a different light. She was like, because when I talk to my friends or family, and they talk to me about it, it's easy for me to just be like whatever. She was like, but just not knowing you that well, she's like, you open my eyes to this, and I'm like, yeah, but as a Christian in my own religion, I felt like you know, I couldn't say anything. I was like, oh God, I felt obligated, and especially with my type of personality, when I feel obligated to do something, I'm like it freaks me out. Like it makes me want to do the opposite. So because I didn't feel obligated, because I felt like look, this isn't that, I can talk to you in this way, I can bring this point up, and then just leave it there. I was fine with that, but with Christianity, it's like that fear that's ingrained in you. It's like if you don't say this, if you don't do this, if you don't act on this right here and right now, then these are going to be the consequences. Like I felt like if I don't say this, then my family's going to be broke or something's going to happen, something bad is going to happen. That's what we were told. Right before we were leaving church, it was like, if you don't tithe, you're going to be cursed. You're going to be cursed. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be cursed, so we're tithing, 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 tithing. Jr. had to tell me the right way to tithe based off. I was just all over the place. I didn't know what I was doing. All I just knew was I got to give money. I didn't care how I was giving. I just know I had to give money because otherwise I was gonna be head over my heels in debt when I went to college. I was gonna be broke. I was gonna be poor. I was gonna be SOL. But you have that fear that if I don't do this, this is gonna happen. And when we were told that if you don't tithe, this is not going to happen, we left church, stopped tithing. If it felt like our situation got better.
Mhm.
It really, honestly, it felt like maybe it's just my perception or our perception of it, but it felt like
Oh, more
we
groceries
had
in the
more
house.
money.
More groceries in the house. Yeah, situation got better.
Right. If
Yeah.
not better, it was the same, and it was like there is really no difference. So and even this is a little bit off topic, but still tying into the topic at hand, is that even I'm not, we're not fully vegetarian. JR is pescatarian, and then I'm somewhat vegetarian. As far as what we keep in the house, we keep all vegetarian products in the house. But I say this to meat eaters. They're like, oh, I can't. I have to have my pork. I have to have my hamburger. I couldn't live without it. I have to have my steak. And I'm like, you don't know that until you try it.
Mhm.
You have no idea until you try it. But same thing goes with religion. You don't try it. You don't want to try it. You don't have the desire to try outside of what you've known all your life, or for the majority of your life. So don't speak on something you don't know about.
So, Stephen, let me ask, just kind of piggybacking off of what Sierra said as far as changing the mindset. And I could say one thing about me is after changing my mindset about religion, I started to think about other things. As far as being a humanist, and as far as started to be more concerned about the environment and other species other than myself. And she just mentioned about the change in diet. What do you attribute your change in diet to? Is it related to your new way of thinking, or is it how did that come about?
My change in my diet was really because of me. Because what
How
happened?
selfish of you.
I mean, 'cause, like because the way I started thinking about like with some of the stuff, because I know that like I know I wasn't ready like to really give up my meat, so to speak, because it was like I like the chicken. I mean, I already had given. I didn't like pork. I didn't eat beef or anything like that. But I was like my chicken, and I think what it just so happened that right around the time that I was changing my belief systems around, I started noticing I was getting sick too, and I started like trying to, I guess, run an experiment on myself because I would eat chicken or I'd eat meat, and then what would happen was I would get sick. And then I would go like maybe a day or two without eating meat, and I would just eat vegetables, and then I started noticing I felt better. And so I was like, wait a minute, let me try this again. And I kept trying it, and every time I eat meat, the same thing happened. I would get sick, and so I was like, you know what? It's probably just better for me to go and kick this. And once I kicked it, I start feeling so much better. I had more energy. So I guess, and I guess in a way, my changing my belief system is what helped. Not directly though. I think it's the mindset of let me test this out instead of because I could have easily just would have been like, oh, it's the meat. I got to get rid of that. I could have easily been like that. But I guess during that time period, since I was challenging every single thing, I was challenging tithing, I was challenging the rapture. I was like, well, let me challenge this. I mean, I'm obviously not feeling well after I eat this, so let me go ahead and try to
Like
change
I've
my
done everything
behavior.
else at this point, might as well.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like might as well go for broke
Yeah.
because I mean that's what we and she says the tithing thing, but that's what we did about the tithing. I came up and I did a study about tithing, and I found out that they tithe livestock and they also tithe fruits and vegetables, and
Right.
they didn't really tithe money like that. If anything,
Right.
you could redeem your tithe by getting money, not giving money. And so I told her, I was like, well, we've been doing, unbiblical tithing for the longest, and I'm pretty sure the pastor's not going to be pleased if I come up with an apple and be like, "Here's my tithe,"
Right.
So come in there with a goat, like
here's our tithe for this week.
He's like, bring my gators and bring my Cadillac, tithe that.
Right.
Caddy payment.
Right.
So,
Reverend Porkchop wants his payments.
Right.
Right. Give me what I'm due, right?
But we decided to do, I was like, you know what, let's just, try it. And we just stopped tithing. And when we stopped, like I said, obviously you're not paying much more money.
Our roof didn't cave in, so we were like, oh, that's good.
And so, like I said, but this is, it's funny because when I reflect on it, it's like I start thinking about my mindset. And I used to keep a journal during this time period, so I know exactly what I was going through. And around the time that I did become vegetarian was the same time that I was challenging my belief with everything else. So I don't think directly the vegetarianism was the result of me becoming atheist. I just think that it was kind of a byproduct of me challenging everything else in my life. Because it was that window of I dropped out of college when I was I was out of college when I was 19. I think 19 or 20 years old. So in that 20 years to 22 window is when I journaled the most, is when I challenged my beliefs the most, and that's during the time period that I decided to become vegetarian. So I don't know. I think it all is intertwined somehow because of the complexity of the brain. But yeah, I think it definitely played somewhat of a part in that.
Yeah. So Jim, what about you? Like any change after your change in mindset and your outlook? Like what do you attribute, or like what was your response to the things after your mind is changed about? I know we've talked before about, and you're very active with the with your atheism in the public square, basically with different issues, separation of church and state and things like that. But how about like anything personally to you, like your outlook as a result of your mind changing and becoming a free thinker? What would you say some of the things that's changed? Has it been, because I know in our group we do have vegetarians and vegans, and we have events where we kind of cater towards, hey, wherever we go, there's going to have to be some consideration for that. But what has been your experience along that same line of questioning?
Well, I never considered myself very religious. I've been a skeptic since I was 6. I remember it like it was yesterday, and I continued on with that skepticism and felt the need to explore different religions and read a lot and try to gain understanding. And I did believe in a God, but eventually that evolved into not believing in the biblical God, So it's just been a progression, and I've only met atheists a little over 2 years ago for the first time that I know of, that actually were open with their atheism. And I remember I went to a meeting and we were going around the table talking about our experiences and things and how we came to becoming skeptical. And I felt like, wow, I felt like this is where I should be. There's actually people in the world who get me, like who on some level, not 100%, but on some level. I felt like there was I felt like I was home. I felt like, wow, that feeling when I was going to different churches and other religious places. I I was looking, that feeling where people feel like they're getting a spirit or touched by God or being spoken to or communicated with on some level. And I was looking for that feeling and never found it. So I never felt like I never felt connected to that world. And once I met other free thinkers, agnostics, atheists, I felt a connection like I didn't before, and I wanted to keep that connection going. And we had an organizer of the group before, and she had some she was relocating and had some personal things going on in her life, and I remember thinking, I want to keep meeting. Like, when are we meeting? When's our next meeting? And just excited, and I just started going to all these different places, and I was like, so I started hosting some of our meetings, and and I kept asking her, hey, let's keep meeting, and I hosted about 17 meetups before she decided to say, all right, Jen, well, you run the group now.
Right.
So I feel like it's become my a good 85% of my social circle is with free thinkers, atheists, and agnostics. I feel like I could totally be myself in a way that. What did you say?
Can you guys teleport yourselves here?
Oh,
Yeah.
what I recommend? I recommend that if you don't have a group down here, have you looked on meetup.com
No,
for a group that's near you?
What we know about is
It's a city over.
It's a city over. It's about an hour away. It's in Florence. It's Florence Atheist Group.
Okay.
And what's his name? Rhetoric. Have you heard of Rhetoric Resurrected?
No,
Yes.
Is this a black group or what?
No, it's
Okay.
it's black and white.
Rhetoric is black.
Yeah, he is, but the group itself is mixed. Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Well,
yeah.
what about starting your own?
I tried to somewhat start that. The only problem is well, I think they have a number of places on college campus like USC, and I tried to go one. It was one time I tried to go, but it was not necessarily an atheist group. It was more so I don't know. It became it developed into a Pokemon.
They were like, "What's your favorite Pokemon card?"
Yeah, it wasn't really about.
I choose you.
It was I felt so awkward because we were all there, and then all of a sudden they were just
Squirtle.
I was like, what is this group? I couldn't find. Needless to say, I really couldn't find a group like that. Because, like I said, I really
didn't
expect that at all. I was just, everybody was going around.
They're called the Pastafarians.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should have just went to another meeting, and maybe it would have been. It just weirded me out because all I just see is all these people who just talking about Pokemon and Digimon, and I was like, this is an atheist group. And I mean, at the very beginning, they did say it was atheists and agnostics, and I was like, I don't understand this. It doesn't.
You know what you could do? I mean, there's been many meetups where it was just me and one other person, where I would just post, hey, this time and day I'm gonna be here. Show up. And there was many times where it was just two people. It's not the amount of people that show up. It's more about the consistency of having meetings or going to meetings that's important. Because if one person shows up to your meeting, at least you've made your network grow.
Right.
And as time goes on, that network will grow even more. Yeah. Black Atheists of Philadelphia's group has an online presence of about 100 members, Now there's only 15 actual members that come to meetups and, and interact and things, but it's a start. And that group,
Exactly.
when I first went, there was about 6 people there. The first meetup I went to, I think, had 6 people, and just from promoting it and having meetings and trying to have, I mean, it could be just like at a coffee shop or a food court of a mall. All I do is just say, hey, this is I posted on our Facebook page and our meetup page. I let some other people know, like through other groups and on Facebook, or that, hey, this is where I'm going to be. Feel free to show up. I mean, there's times where I've shown up and I've been there by myself for like an hour before the next person comes. You just create a window and people will come. Try doing something like maybe twice a month. We're going to meet at a coffee shop, and even if it's just you two, it's going to at least be, you're at least going to enjoy one another's company and just go from there. Because I'm sure there's other non-believers in your area. I'll make some inquiries as well. But I know there's definitely an online.
Yeah. Is everybody still on
I know we have the access. I know we have the access to. It's just also the nerves of, like, okay, because that initial starting up, like, nobody. You just think like nobody.
Just keep doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, keep going. It's, if you start a group, there's been many messages that I've gotten from people. Oh, I noticed that you had a meeting last week. I couldn't make it to that one. When do you have the next one? Or I'll be at the next one. Or they see like 3 and 4 meetings go by before they show up. I mean, there's people on our meetup group that showed up to a meeting after being a member of the meetup group for over 6 months before they even decided to come to a meeting. So I would just do something maybe twice a month, like make it, something that you would normally do with one another. Go to the park, or go to the coffee shop, or hang out at the mall or something like that. Something that doesn't cost you a lot of money. You don't want to get into renting spaces with a group with just a few people. So twice a month, just post something. We're free thinkers, and we like to meet with other free thinkers. And if you set it up as an event, forward it to me. I'll help promote it. Use your online resources to help promote your meetings. And you don't have to have a set agenda. Our meetings are very informal, sort of like this. It's very informal.
Exactly.
We just get on, we just have a conversation, and we go from there. And if someone wants to bring some things, sometimes I bring brochures and things from different groups, and we talk about it. Or once in a while, we have guests from other groups. But I've only been organizing the group officially for almost 7 months. So it just takes time.
Yeah.
It just takes time and consistency.
Yeah. I agree. And I've had the same experience with writing my blog. I started out on Facebook, and I started writing these things, and after a while, I'm like, you know what, I want to kind of have an archive of what I want to write about. And over a year, I'm almost at like 11,000 views from people. I mean, almost every country on this on the planet, from every continent. I've had people that read my information. I don't know if they agree to get that out there. And I think, especially if you're in an area where it's really conservative, is to definitely use those online resources. And there's some nervousness in getting it started, but believe me, there's people out there that they may not initially come out to an event, but even if it started with an exchange on Facebook or an exchange somewhere, eventually you'll build. And like I said, it doesn't even matter. And when I do the debates, it doesn't matter about convincing the other person. It's just getting that information or your point of view out into the environment. And, you know, people pick up on that. And believe me, that there's people in your, you know, like you said, there's Christians that have doubts. And, you know, maybe they'll want to talk about specific things. I know, like Michelle, you know, when we met, she was in church all the time, but we just started having these discussions, and, you know, she, wherever she is on her belief, that's her personal thing, I feel, or lack of belief. But she had questions that were not being answered, you know, because people are so scared to confront those things. So I believe you'll find a lot of people in your environment that's there. Maybe they haven't developed their thinking all the way to the other, you know, to the other end of the spectrum, but they have their doubts and they have questions that they always wanted to answer, to have answers for, but were scared to ask, or the pastors or the people in charge either didn't know the answer to them or weren't, you know, willing to give answers. And you can build, like I said, you can start with 3 people, and then we have this ability to reach all around the world. I think it's a great opportunity, and I think we need more voices out there having these conversations. And you know, somebody will pick up on this from, you know, you post it on your Facebook, somebody picks it up and they'll see, well, what are these people talking about? Well, what are they about? Oh, you know, well, what, you know, it just gets the information out there, and over years you'll build it to, you know, to who knows what level. And, you know, you have your point of view out there, you have an archive, you know, Ashton could look, you know, back and see his parents and grandparents on the line talking about a subject, and so that he doesn't have to deprogram himself. He has an advantage of not having to stop asking those questions, because, you know, no question is too sacred to ask or have an answer for. So even if you think in that behalf, well, I'm doing it for Ashton, that's what I was feeling like, you know, well, I'm going to write this blog for, you know, for my grandson to look at, to see what Pop wrote this about this, and he made videos about this. So that's the reason I started to become more vocal with my non-belief and my philosophy. Not only just the non-belief, but then my philosophy on a lot of different things, and then just the things that I like, you know, that have nothing to do with being an atheist or anything like that. You know, you have a lot of other things, and we have the opportunity to leave a legacy. So I would say just go for it, you know, just go for it, and just, you know, put it out there. You know, the worst thing that happen is just that, you know, you have intelligent conversation between the two of you, and somebody will happen upon it just based on numbers, because you can post a YouTube video on this pen, and you'll have a rabid group of people that collect pens and meet at Liberty Place. Like, we were at Liberty Place one time, Jen. I don't even remember that. They had the people with the dolls. That was, yes. That was weird. Was that not weird? Listen, these people were next to us. It was men and women, and they had these dolls. I guess they made these dolls, and they went through the whole thing. And then at the end of their meeting, they start singing, and it was like, what is going on here? Was that weird or not, Jen, or was it just me?
It was the doll cult. The doll cult.
Yeah, it was
little. I mean, I thought these some of these dolls look almost lifelike, like they could get up and start walking around. Yeah. And I don't know if you ever, I don't know if you ever saw this movie called Trilogy of Terror, with the little voodoo doll gets up and starts running around and starts attacking me. I just thought it was going to be something like that. I was like, these dolls look a little weird. And they're dressing them up and displaying them, and then they're singing to the dolls, and I'm like, okay.
Oh my!
But But think about it. They might have been on. They might have been looking at us like, "What? These are atheists? Who are they? Like, what are they doing? That's weird. They don't believe in God. Are they devil worshippers? Like, they might have been looking at us strange."
Right. But it's just like you'll find that group. You will find definitely just based on numbers alone. I believe you'll find the people in your area, and then like so you can always like I was thinking when we had our meetings, we can just do like the same thing we do now, this kind of conference call in. You know what I mean? Sit there. You can have a phone going, and you can participate in our meetup. You know what I mean? So, um,
We
we're
like
in,
that.
yeah. So think about that. We use the technology that we have, and I mean, I started hooking up with because we're moving to Florida. Uh, I started joining the groups down in Florida. Like I'm a member of Orlando's group, and I post on their page, and
Oh, okay.
so it's like we're going to be actually back and forth because we're just doing a little lifestyle change, but. Once I get down there, I'm not letting my Philly people go. It's just like, we'll be back and forth, and I'm going to be active all on both. So we had this technology. I say just put it out there. I mean, even if you have, I thought we had a great idea. I don't know how if this is still going on. Is just to have like a phone number for people that had questions, like almost like a hotline. Like if you have a question about your belief, call in. I mean, because you never know. I mean, you never know, and then it's just
They have
me.
they have something like that through Recovering from Religion Foundation. They have
Right.
there's a group that kind of caters to people that are trying to leave religion, and in some areas they do have a phone number people could call into, or like some sort of support. I was thinking about
Mm-hmm.
doing something like that in the Philadelphia area. I don't know what the interest is like for it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's something we can put out to the group and see if they would be interested in having a chapter in Philadelphia, in the
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia area.
Yeah, that would
People
be.
who because I on a regular basis I do speak with or interact with people who are very angry and have been traumatized,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes I'm just the one that they're venting to, or and I'm just listening to them. But there's times where I feel like perhaps a better qualified person could be in on this as well. And, from a secular perspective, just like, there's AA, NA, there should be groups that help support people that are leaving religion, and getting
Yeah.
off the Jesus drug.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, I don't know if there's a group like that in the Philadelphia area, but it's worth doing. It's worth trying out. Hi.
Yeah, Jen, I'm sorry. Are you there?
That's okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just sent you a couple messages. The Coalition of Reason barbecue starts at 1, so I wanted to get over
Yeah.
there. I'm
Yeah,
still
yeah. I
at
was just
home,
going
so
to
I
end
could.
it. Yeah, I was just going to end it up. I saw the time was winding up. Yeah, I wanted to thank you definitely uh, for the participation, and it's great. I think it went well, and
Yes.
and I'd like to do it again, and we can come up with a time. Maybe do it a couple times a month or something like that, and get some other people in.
Sounds
Some of the
good.
people that can't make, yeah, some people that can't make it down to the live meeting, we have some things to interact. Then we could kind of take the conversation different, some things that we don't talk about at our face-to-face meetings. We can kind of expand on, and
Okay.
then kind of get some informal uh, chats in about we can have some people to come in that from different point of views come in and just have conversations with. And it doesn't have to be a full-on debate, but just hey, what do you think about this? And that I think it'll be a good addition, and bring people in that, like I said, they can't make it down sometimes, because I think they want to make it down. I'm one of them. I want to make every one, but I tell you, I had that competition of this weather because I'm in the house all the time. I had a competition of the weather, and I want to get out and ride the bike. So but
Yeah,
yeah,
I understand, and it's definitely a good way to interact with people who cannot show up for whatever reason. And I mean, it could also be a weeknight. Like
right,
maybe people are working on Saturdays and Sundays. Maybe pick like a first Tuesday of the month
okay,
evening. Something like that.
yeah,
Or first Wednesday of the month, or pick a set day and kind of do this, once or twice a month.
yeah, that's
It could
great,
be
and
good. And then if
yeah,
someone decides that they're not gonna come to the meetings, because like I said, there's a lot of people out there that are fearful of being seen or coming to these meetings. So
yeah,
it might give them a way of getting involved without having to come. And then maybe as their comfort level grows, it'll change. I know
right,
the first meeting of the Black Atheists of Philadelphia that I went to, it was for the Day of Solidarity for Black non-believers, and it's always the fourth Sunday in February. And
okay,
there was a sign up, and one of the things that I decided when I host group meetings is not to put a sign up.
mm,
I don't. Some people, it's tough enough for some of the people to come out, so why would I want to call more attention to it?
right,
I mean, it might make people uncomfortable.
right,
So I don't. I mean, my picture is in plain view on the meetup and Facebook. I'm sure they could pick me out. I give a description of where we're meeting, and go from there. I just don't want people to feel intimidated, and this is a good way to do this from home.
yeah, that's great,
So
yeah, yeah, Sierra and Stephen, and we were just kind of winding up. That actually went longer than I thought, and that's great. And that was a great free flowing conversation. And Jen was just, she's got to go to we have a picnic up here, um, and I'm gonna stop by as well. But any closing thoughts from either you two? We just Jen had just mentioned that it's something that we want to do on a regular basis, and for the people that actually can't physically make it down, or may have to work, or the weekend's not a good day. So any closing thoughts from either one of you two?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, we hear you fine.
yes,
Okay, good. um, I really enjoyed it. It's a good outlet because it can get lonely. And thank you guys for that advice. As far as the meetup is concerned, I mean, because we know undoubtedly that our Sundays are always free.
Mhm.
So we just know that's a good time for us, whether it's later in the afternoon or in the morning. So it's just about finding what's feasible for us and just staying, diligent and, encouraged and everything and, just hopeful, is, using Facebook, like you guys are saying, using all the technology as our resource. Because when I think about it, um, even though it's a disadvantage that you have whatever in a conservative area that's predominantly Christian. We also have to think about those who there's people like us who don't necessarily who can be like we're Jr. more so than me, but more open about their atheism. But then there's people who are just more laid back and don't necessarily they have disbeliefs, but they don't want to be as open about it. So if we give them an outlet and say, hey, you can come by, then they feel like they don't have to make it public or make it known, that they can just show up, and meet with us and feel like, hey, well, I know this resource is here, so I can show up whenever I feel comfortable enough. And then I think it would be great to meet regularly. I enjoyed it. Stephen, I know you really enjoyed it. So yeah.
I appreciate meeting you online. I know we're friends.
Finally.
I know we're friends on Facebook. You see my crazy posts, but it's great to get a voice with a face. And feel free to reach out. You're not alone out there, And definitely just shoot me an email, like the area of South Carolina you live in,
Okay.
and I could try to make some inquiries and see who I might know to reach out to down there, or reach out within different groups online and see if they know of any groups or know of any individuals that may want to meet up with you. But yeah, use your networking. I love the network, so I'm definitely I'm definitely open to helping you in your search for interaction down there with like-minded individuals, or at least people on the same path that you're on.
That's great. That's wonderful. And so we're going to close it out from here. And I must say that this is like one of the first time, and my daughter and I have been on conference calls. But I must say she's stunning, man. She's a looker, man. I was like, who's this fine woman on here? I was like, that's my daughter. Okay. So yeah. So we're going to go ahead and close it out. Thanks again to Jen for my wife who had to leave early, but always very supportive, and for my daughter and son-in-law down in South Carolina. They may be stuck now, but hopefully they can hear me. And this be archived on the on my page, and I'll definitely put some links on Facebook and continue to promote it and let it grow to where it goes.
All right, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jen. Thank you again, and you have a great day. I guess I'll see you later. I'm going to get together and run up to the picnic as well.
Oh, great. It would be great. I'll see you. I'll see you later. Thank you.
Okay, great. Take care. Have a good one.
You too.
And bye, Sierra and Stephen, if you hear me. If not, take care.
See y'all later. Bye, Michelle, Sierra, Stephen.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.